All right, it's live.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess one of the reasons why I thought about discussing is because over the internet I keep seeing a lot of I guess male rights activists. Is that what some of you guys would call yourselves? So
Well, you can't call me that. I'm just some guy on the internet. But I guess the correct term would be men's rights activist.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
am not an MRA. But go ahead.
okay. Well, there's a lot of MRA type guys who comment on videos, and to be honest, a lot of the arguments are logical, and I would agree with most of them. It's just I feel like sometimes they don't see the bigger picture. So,
Okay.
for example, feminism is one of them. I mean, clearly in the Western societies, women do not suffer from overt sexism, if that makes sense. I think most people would agree with that. But I'll still think that somehow there is some pressing issues with, for example, how people view women in society. Um, I guess it's more actually women oppressing women really than men oppressing women in a sense, because it's the women who usually use this words like slut um, and other derogatory terms against each other. But I think society also reinforces these statements and doesn't quite allow women to basically be free from themselves. What do you
Well,
think about that?
what do you mean by that? Allows women to be free for themselves?
Well,
Because if you're saying that women aren't free for themselves because people have opinions, well, I mean that's not restricting them from doing anything. But if you're telling me
true.
that they're not free, as in there's something stopping them, well, then that's what you'd have to prove. Because as far as women being able to do whatever they want to do, they can do it. It's just people will have opinions on it. So, so what do you mean by
Okay, I
that?
guess that's true. Okay, an example would be, for example, let's say, okay, let's say for example, okay, there's this initiative by the government in UK. I'm not sure if it's something similar happened in the US, but they wanted to get more women into the so-called STEM subject: science, technology, science and science, technology,
Yeah, and
engineering.
science. Yeah, science, technology,
And
engineering, mathematics.
yeah, I mean, okay, this is an example where feminism did actually go against me personally, because I went to university to study biomedical science, and I didn't quite enjoy the course. I found it a little bit too mundane. I didn't quite, it wasn't for me, so I wanted to switch to chemistry, which is more of a pure science, I guess. But it turns out that my university actually no longer offered that course because the government changed the quotas to allow women to get into these subjects in an easier manner. So basically, if they got a lower grade, they would be allowed into the course. So basically, women flooded into chemistry, but either I'm not sure how the report went because the government really didn't write much about it. But either they either failed the exams or they just didn't enjoy the course. Most of them flocked from the courses and what moved into psychology, biology, etc. So I do understand sometimes feminism becomes too much of a problem that actually affects people's lives negatively. So I had to actually change universities into another university to actually study chemistry in the end. So in that respect, I do understand that sometimes feminism does go too far, but at the same time, I do still think that women do need some form of movement that acknowledges their existence, because I mean, in terms of society,
Right.
for example, we still don't. I mean, personally speaking, I still personally don't even respect women as much as I think I should do. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, that's how you personally feel. I can't really speak on how you personally feel.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to explain what you mean by that.
Okay. For example, okay, let's say in my school right now, for example, at the moment my grades are pretty decent, but there was a time when there was a girl who basically had decent grades, but I couldn't allow myself to get so-called beaten by a girl. I mean, is that not a form of sexism, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, well that depends. Are you saying that the girl's inferior to you and you're superior, or what was your thought
Not
process behind that?
not necessarily, but it's just a sense that when you're boys or you're playing, you can't allow girls to, so you can't be beaten by a girl. You can't be you can't allow a girl to basically overpower you in any sense, be it educationally or physical. I think it's still a sense that men in general, I find, still think that women are not inferior necessarily, but not quite in the same standards.
Well, I mean, men and women are different, so we would be in different standards. Especially if you're talking about in physical strength is the most obvious of standards. But in terms of intellectual pursuit, I mean, I wouldn't that just kind of be something a lot of people dislike, having a lot of other people do better than them? It just kind of seems like it's just competition and being competitive against people in general. But if you're telling me that you specifically do not want a woman to be better than you, and you're gonna have to explain why is that. If you're saying that because you think she's inferior, then yeah, by definition, you are being sexist. But if there's some other reason, I mean, this girl maybe I don't know, you knew her for a long time, she was your friend, some other reason, then I can't really say that's sexist unless you want to say you thought she was inferior. Otherwise, by definition, no, that's not sexism.
No, it definitely wasn't inferior. It was more. I guess maybe it's just my own ego complex. To be honest, I don't. It had nothing to do with her, but still, I feel maybe it's an excuse I was using in my to myself. But at the same time, okay, for example, um, I feel like still society. For example, I mean, there's always a double standard in society. For example, one way we tell women to so-called dress well, not to go out late at night by themselves, etc. And boys, we don't tell them the same things. So why
I know.
why do
Well,
yeah
I think it's because society actually cares about women. I mean, as a man, you can go out and still get attacked and beaten. I don't really
yeah
think that telling women to avoid danger really shows how much you care about them, right? Like, if you don't want them to
yeah
get hurt, then you would tell them to avoid it. That's not saying that you're inferior, that you're weak or anything. That's saying, hey, look, I care about you. I don't want you to get hurt. So go with somebody that might be able to protect you. Go with someone so you guys can protect each other. But I mean, if you never say that to a boy or to a man, that really shows you don't care about his well-being. So I see it as a complete opposite. I mean, you're telling me that telling people to avoid danger somehow is saying that we dislike them or we think they're inferior. I think I personally just ridiculous statement to me. If someone tells me that I shouldn't go outside at night, I'm not going to think that it's because I'm weak. I'm going to think because there's imminent danger around me. So I don't know. I disagree with that statement there that somehow we view these people as inferior by telling them not to get in a dangerous situation.
okay, but I mean that's the thing where I was gonna go move forward to say should society not be so-called safe enough so that the so-called weaker sex in terms of physical strength and ability that they can actually be mobile, they can move around without having to fear. I mean, okay,
Well, the
I
truth
know
of the
you're
matter is they can. Go ahead.
yeah, I know you're probably going to say men are attacked more than women in a higher dimension, etc. In terms of
Actually, no,
violence.
I wasn't going to say that. What I was going to say was women can certainly learn different types of martial arts that rely more on not on physical strength, but on leverage, more on technique. Certainly lots of
Yeah.
different martial arts that were made for smaller people to fight larger opponents. So it is possible for a woman to not fear her surroundings to a paranoid degree. So I mean, yeah, you can have that as a woman. That's not an unobtainable goal. So go ahead.
Okay, but okay, so that's what I was going to go next by saying, shouldn't we? I don't know. I guess create a society that basically nobody fears attacking, because at least men, they in general they're a bit bigger, so they can kind of protect themselves. Now, apart from martial arts, of course, you can without taking that into perspective. In general, the average man can protect himself better than the average woman against an attacker. So, shouldn't we try to create a situation where I guess people who are technically weaker shouldn't have to worry as much?
Well, I mean, yeah, sure, that might be the goal of society, but I'm not sure how. I mean, how would you even go about trying to employ that into society to make it so people don't feel like they're in danger? Because here we're talking about feeling like we're in danger. We're not actually talking about minimizing the danger itself. Because if you want to minimize the danger itself, again, the ultimate question is how are you going to go about creating a society that looks for all these different criminals and can predict all these people from attacking each other without different people taking steps to protect themselves. I don't understand how you would go about that.
So wait, okay, so okay,
Because
for example, so
yeah,
no, you go first.
like what I was gonna say is if you're saying that these people don't feel safe, then it's a feeling. We're not actually talking about you actually being in imminent danger. However, again, if we're talking about how we're gonna create a society where people are actually safe from danger, well, that's a different conversation, you know. And honestly, I don't know how to create that society without employing a totalitarian-like government. And even then, the imminent danger would be the government itself. So I don't know. I'd say the only way you can really do that is by having people willing to protect themselves. However, in terms of
Okay.
feeling, again, go ahead. Hello.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to interject a little bit. Okay. You know, let's say 200 years ago. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, 200 years ago, let's say the average European probably thought they had reached some kind of enlightenment, through the Renaissance and the Enlightenment period, etc. But if you compare the average Europeans, let's say, attitudes and feelings towards, let's say, something about race relationships, or let's say something like, I don't want to go into this, but something like slavery, for example, the average person would be like, it's not that bad. In fact, some people actually believed actively that slavery was good for slaves. I mean, that right now will sound like a ridiculous argument. But I guess my point is this. A lot of people or opposers of so-called feminism would say something like, well, we're in the 21st century. This is 2015. Women are not really oppressed. I mean, I'm sure they can pick out a few things, but there's no systematic oppression of women. But do you not think that basically we think we've arrived, but in any situation in life throughout history, we always have thought that we've arrived? And why is it that now that we've finally reached 2015, we feel like we now are there? But do we have any evidence that we've actually truly arrived? Or in 50 years time or 60 years time, would we now look back at our time and say, oh my goodness, that was seriously an unequal situation that we lived in, or our forefathers lived in?
Well,
Isn't
interestingly
there,
enough,
isn't that a
you bring
problem?
up the, go ahead.
I mean,
I
that's what I was
don't
trying
know.
to say.
I mean, if you're
Okay.
trying that's what will happen. I mean, I don't know. I look at the culture now, and it looks absolutely terrible from my point of view. Um, but it's not terrible in a sense that men and women aren't equal to each other, or that there are inequalities in the world. Because of course there's going to be inequalities, because we're all different and we all have different standards, and we're all levels of intelligence, levels of strength. I mean, on average, men are stronger than women, but then you have some men who are stronger than some men. So in terms of being completely equal, that's just not true. We are just not. Objectively speaking, there is no one standard that everyone would be on completely. We're just so different from each other. 7 billion, 8 billion people, we're just so different. So I mean, you're gonna have to show me levels of inequality here from like our society that shows that men and women are not on par with each other. Because in terms of the law, you can see that the law actually incarcerates more men than it does women for the same exact crime. So I mean, that wouldn't be equal, objectively speaking. But I want to know, socially speaking, what are the inequalities that women have that are not fair compared to men? Because I don't see anything. From what I can tell, it looks like women get a lot of privileges in our society. So let me explain that to me. Because if you're telling me that in history we're going to look back, I mean, I don't know. I'm in the present right now. I can't look back and say, well, maybe I was wrong because I'm living life right now. I mean, maybe like I can look when I was 15 years old and say that, even though I was like 4 years ago, but I can't say that now. I don't know. But I want to know, what inequalities between men and women do you see that I just don't?
I mean, that's the thing. I don't really think there's any so-called inequalities, but there are. I mean, I'll say the biggest one is technically attitudes, and I'm not sure how you can change that exactly, but it still feels like like overall society, we don't tend to trust in the qualities, the reliability, or the what do you call it, the competency of a woman. For example, let's say parliamentary decisions. Women make up 51% of any population in any part of the world, apart from China, where they kill those women, etc. But yet women make up only about 20% of the so-called parliamentary seats, or in your case, Congress. So, for example, I mean, so if women
Well,
make
I'm gonna
up,
have, I'm gonna have to go. Actually, go ahead. Finish that, because I do have one very important question I have to ask you. But
right,
go
so
ahead.
if women are 51% population, yeah, and they actually technically vote more than men, why are women not voting for other women? I mean, don't worry, I wasn't going to go saying whatever you thought I was going to say, probably, but yeah. So what makes women not even trust in other women. It's the fact that society, wider society, we still don't believe in women. That's I mean that's I guess the problem.
Well, I
It's
mean,
like a
that's not
systematic.
really society. No, that what that seems like is that women don't trust other women. That doesn't look like that's society. I mean, first of all, I live in America, so I live in a democratic republic. So it really does not matter what the sex of the representative is. It just matters that they represent the state. So it doesn't. And so I personally, I don't care if there are more men or women in Congress. It doesn't matter based on the government that we have. So to contest that, in my opinion, is a complete waste of time. All that matters is the person does the job. So it can be a woman, it can be a man, it can be a gorilla. It doesn't matter. There are representatives are supposed to state and what the state votes. So there's actually no reason to even contest that, just based on the government
Yeah.
that we live in. So with that being
Okay.
said, if it's more
Yeah.
women who are voting for more men, well then that's not society. That's women saying that they'd rather have these representatives based on their criteria. And if the women aren't voting for other women, again, that's not society. That's women. If women don't trust each other, that's women. I guess that's biology. You're gonna have to talk to women about that because I don't know. Because personally, if a woman is a good representative and she gets the job done, then I'm absolutely gonna vote for her. I'm absolutely gonna work for a woman who knows what she's doing. So that's not something I deal with. I mean, if you're telling me that it's women who are voting for men, then it's women's fault who's doing all this. It's not society, you know.
Okay. See. Okay. See, that makes that's a perfect statement, and I would agree with everything you said. However, for example, in terms of democracy and reality of social cohesion, it's true that in a democratic state, it doesn't matter if you're being represented by a donkey or gorilla, as you said, or whatever. But the thing is,
It's a joke,
but
but
the
go
thing
ahead.
is, but the thing is, whoever represents the country does encourage the so-called younger generation. We still haven't reached that place where there have been enough women or other minorities in a place of power that you can actually say that it is irrelevant. I mean, for example, let's say someone like Obama. I mean, a lot of people in let's say ghetto black communities were quite happy when he was elected. I'm sure quite a lot of richer black men didn't really care, but the poorer ones who basically wanted to see themselves projected into like an image where they feel like they can make it kind of gave them, at least for the first 5 years, some encouragement about what their lives could be potentially. Maybe not president, but something greater than in the hood life, etc. So in the same, I'm making an interjunction between women. So I feel like even in the Western societies, we still need more women representatives so that it can actually give women encouragement to actually pursue these careers. Because at the moment, the women that we do get in parliamentary elections either are people like Hillary Clinton, who basically she's a competent woman, but she's a bit of a tyrant. Personally, I would not vote for someone like that. Or you get someone like Sarah Palin, who's a complete idiot, who doesn't even understand, doesn't even know what part of the world Africa is in, or the Middle East. She literally is a retard, so to speak. So, I guess it's the fact that basically the women who we are presented with are not actually competent, and I feel like it's actually it's an injustice because we don't actually sort through by encouraging women to get into these positions, by having women who are competent actually applying for this position, and then that basically in turn only makes women who are incompetent to go into positions. For example, you said you would vote for a woman who you thought you agreed with the ideological concepts or society, but any woman who comes into power will by virtue have to talk about feminism and how unequal women are. But then as soon as a woman
No,
talks
not,
about
not necessarily. No, she doesn't.
okay, it's true. I did hear the Supreme Court justice didn't actually said she wasn't a feminist, but let's say something like the presidency. I'm sure it's a 90% chance that the woman would actually have to talk about feminism. Otherwise, she feels like she would not get the support. But then by virtue, by her accepting that she is a feminist, people like you or others with similar views would definitely view that feminist agenda as
Well,
an
then,
era.
I'm gonna have to stop you right there, just for 1 second, because if you're telling me that a candidate has to appeal to an ideology in order to get support, then what are we really voting for? Because that, based on your example, it sounds like you really vote more for the ideology than the merit of the person. Like if what the person's saying is not enough to get them into office, well then it shows that there's a problem with our culture going on right now. That I have to say that I'm a feminist to get your support. No, it should be the person who can do the job well should get it done. So it kind of looks like we're just playing popularity contests with the fate of our country, just based on
Uh,
what you're saying there. And I
yeah,
think, and that's why I think it's completely ridiculous to have someone say I have to be a feminist or I have to say I'm a feminist to get someone's support. Because what that shows is we're really voting for the ideology. We're not voting for the merit of the person. We're not voting for what the person can do for us. We're voting for the just so we can say, look, we have a feminist here, and that's ridiculous. It's not going to help out with anything, you
I
know.
mean,
But
I
go ahead.
agree with you, but I agree with you exactly that. But what I'm trying to say as well is that it's because of that, that the fact that most women would be pressured into having to so-called endorse feminism, that they would feel like if they don't endorse it, they would get counter backlash from feminists saying that, you know, this woman has an opportunity to be so-called representing women everywhere who are unequal, etc. But she's not taking that. Or do you see what I mean? As in, her campaign would be
Yeah,
now.
and yeah, and so then I'm gonna have to stop you there again and say that well, her by proxy being a woman, she represents being a woman. But again, if you're saying you're kind of saying that feminism is the same as being a woman, and it's just not. You know,
No,
just because you
but
don't have to be just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're a feminist. Because you're a feminist doesn't mean you're a woman. You know, even though ironically some feminists don't count men as feminists, but you know they're not one and the same. Two different things. You know, being a woman's biological. She has a vagina, she gets the job done. She gets the job done. Being a feminist means you have an ideology and a so-called agenda on what you want to get done. So those are two different things. And I don't understand why a woman has to say I am a feminist in order to get the support of these radical people. I say no. Just have some merit, do the job well, and then you should be voted for just based on you doing a good job. I don't really understand why we have to wear this brand of feminism in order to get support. Because again, we're just going back to the fact that we're saying that we need a figurehead or we need an ideology and not the merit of the person who's running for office. That's just keep
okay,
right. That's what I keep sensing from what you're saying here.
but let me okay, that again, that makes sense. But I mean, who are voters? I mean, the average voter doesn't really even understand the difference between. I mean, the average voter, basically, let's say in American standards, would only know the difference between Republicans. They'll probably think they're stuck up, you know, richer, more conservative people, and then they'll think the Democrats are a little bit more liberal and, you know, a bit more free. But I mean, that's the only distinction most. I'm not saying most, but many people would have. So
Yeah,
for
and I
someone
agree
to
with that.
let's say have the educational ability that you have to be able to you know, go into the what am I voting for? What is she promising? Or what is the direction of the country? Most people really don't think that far. They actually, you know, to them, I mean, that's why, for example, let's say parliamentary elections in America is such a big spectacle, because it is literally about what you say, who you. It's more like the domino effect. You knock one domino, and then the rest of the dominoes fall over. So it's not quite about um, the integrity of the person, more about how they are marketable. It's more like a marketing strategy. So in other words, I feel like most women who do come to power will feel pressured to endorsing something you believe is stupid like feminism, and by that virtue, men like you would not be able to stick by someone who you feel is going to be projecting a false ideology. So I get it. I mean, yeah, so that's what I was trying to say.
I don't know. Well, then personally, it kind of sounds like that'd be a good thing. If we're trying to get someone who's not being honest with themselves in the office, not doing a good job, and you know, here in America, we already have a bunch of liars and people who don't do what they say they're going to do. I don't know. It sounds like that's a fantastic thing that people are going to vote for this individual who's lying or just trying to market themselves. And instead, we're going to try to vote for someone who actually has the merit to get the job done. You know, but I think I guess to narrow the focus back down, we're really more talking about having representatives for females, right? Is that really what we're talking about here? That women should have more role
Repeat that
models
one
to
more
look
time.
up to. Are you saying that women should have more? I think again to go back to what we were originally talking about before we got onto the politics of marketing yourself. We're talking
Yeah,
about how women need more role models or more of an image of what to aspire to be. I
yeah.
think that's
I
what
guess
the point you're really making.
yeah. I guess for me personally, again, I disagree with what feminism has become. I feel like third wave feminism is more about man bashing and more about basically it's about a group of hateful people who basically uh, feel like they can express themselves outside of society and try to basically radicalize a few youth. But I do feel like there is an element of feminism, an element of it which exists in the sense that women do not have role models. They don't see themselves in positions of power. Or when I say power, I mean um, in high so-called high-ranking officials, and because they don't see themselves in those positions, they I guess they feel disempowered. Then they do go into pointless degrees like women studies, gender inequality studies, African studies, Middle East studies. Things which are not practical in any sense of the situation. They're going to end up as teachers, or at
Well,
maximum, yeah.
uh, well, I was gonna say being a teacher is actually, I mean, it doesn't pay well, but it is a very important job. So I don't really see anything wrong with a woman aspiring to be a teacher. I think that's a great career path. If you want to make money, then no, probably not. But if you want to actually make a difference and try to instill some value into a child, absolutely. I mean, there's so many teachers of mine that had a gigantic impact on who I am today. So being a teacher that's a great job profession in terms of actually making a difference and helping someone out. But again, in terms of making money, which isn't the most important thing in life, by the way, then you're right. Then there aren't a lot of women trying to make money. But the interesting thing about that is,
So
well, actually,
like
actually, I'll talk about that later in the discussion. I'll just come back to that point. But to talk about what we're saying right now, I do agree that you're right. That a lot of young ladies certainly don't have role models. They don't have a lot of people to try to aspire to be like, especially if their mom's working all the time or they're in the, they got their parents got divorced, their mom's working. They don't really have an idea of what femininity is. And I agree with you on that. However, I don't see how modern day feminism is trying to reconcile that like at all. Because just recently, there was this gigantic outcry about Protein World, who had this one model who, like, she actually used the product, worked out and exercised, and a bunch of women got upset because they're saying that any woman who looks like that is an unrealistic expectation of what women should look like. So you try to have a role model for women, and then automatically it turns out that's not enough for them. So I don't understand. I mean, yeah, again, I agree with you on the sense that there are not a lot of role models for women and young ladies to really aspire to be, other than like Margaret Thatcher is a good role model.
yeah.
But I don't really see how you're going to reconcile that, because when we try to have or try to get women to galvanize them to go work out or do something, then apparently it's sexist or it's a bad thing. So, and what are your thoughts
Oh,
on that?
okay. I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to take a different direction. I mean, okay.
Okay,
So at the moment, okay, this is a reality in the moment, in the Western society that we live in. For example, we've reached a state where basically chivalry no doesn't. Okay, women still want and expect chivalry. So holding the door for
absolutely.
you,
Hmm.
paying for meals, etc. And at the same time, they want to be equal. So I feel like yeah, we reached a situation where women want to have their eat their cake and then eat it again, even though it's
Oh
no longer
yeah,
there.
absolutely. Made a whole video about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, I still okay. Here's the thing. I feel like women want that because I guess they feel hopeless. They feel like their efforts in this world have become obsolete in the sense that the world runs, and they keep going about this patriarchy. Do I believe in the world isn't a patriarchy? Well, yes. I mean, the world was made, created, engineered by men, so therefore it's going to suit the kind of thinking and abilities that men possess in general compared
Yeah,
to.
but do you know what the word patriarchy means though?
I'm not. Well, I'm not going to go into the academic feminist definition of
No, no,
so-called
yeah, but
patriarchy.
I don't mean to be a dick about it, but a patriarchy is is an organization for a family unit. Patriarchy means the father
Yeah.
is in charge of what's going on.
So
So
the nuclear
patriarchy
family.
isn't it isn't. I mean, it's ipso facto male led because the father's in charge, yes, but the patriarchy means father. So just because you have men in charge, if they're not fathers, then it's not a patriarchy by definition. And even then, if you're not running your kids, then it doesn't really matter. But I mean, if you're telling me that society is mostly male led, well then yeah, you're right, because it's mostly men who are creating the lot of different advancements that make society grow. And it's men who literally build buildings in society itself. And it's women who are usually, more often than not, teachers who teach men how to do this. So I mean, it's not like women don't have an effect on the world, because they absolutely do. And so I guess what I say that to say that to make it seem as if women don't have any effect or any power in our society just simply is not true. Especially if you have like a stay-at-home mom, or you have a woman who's taking care of her children, because she's the one who teaches them how to be adults and teaches them all these different skills and whatnot. And if you take women out of that position, then they have lost that power. And that is one way you could say women have been disenfranchised by feminism itself. But to say that our society is just simply male dominated, then no, that's BS, because there are lots of different positions where women have power and can influence generations all of the time, you know. So again, in terms of technology and creating society itself, yes, that has been men, but women have oftentimes always been there to either educate children or take care of them or raise them up to be the men who do that. So it's not even that women are disenfranchised. I think a lot of women have lost that power, definitely, with say the sexual revolution and disconnecting themselves from childbirth and child rearing. But women absolutely had a lot of power, in our society just throughout the course of history. So, I mean, there's no way you could say women have been disenfranchised at all here in our in American society, or like in a Western society. At least not in recent times, they haven't been. Like, if you want to bring up the Middle East, well, the Middle East, just the Taliban sucks for people in general. So even though women are disenfranchised there, men are disenfranchised. Just a terrible living situation for human beings. So I effectively disagree completely that somehow women have been completely disenfranchised in our Western societies.
Well, okay. Okay. Maybe I'll rephrase it or reiterate. But it's like, okay, put it this way, right? In the beginning of time, men used to go hunting. Women would kind of pick up the berries. Then, as we became more technologically advanced, we started farming. So men would create the farming tools, and then the men would do the more hard jobs, I guess, and then the females would do the more planting and harvesting, etc. But men would be still out there trying to create engineering, etc., processes of cattle rearing, etc. So it feels like it's because of how the world basically developed itself. We've reached a position where small differences within men and females, male and females, have created dispersion, a disparity between the two sexes in terms of what each one of them is good in, and the other one is not good in. So, for example, it just happens that male jobs in general pay better than female jobs. I mean, and that's what I mean by society. We don't seem to appreciate women. I guess maybe it's because the jobs women do are less technical. Maybe there's a trend that that so-called female jobs are less technical, but there is this disparity.
Well, out of curiosity, let's define male and female jobs so we have a better understanding of what we're talking about.
Let's define it. So how I define it is male jobs, let's say engineering, mathematical, logical type jobs. It appears that women don't or do not either possess these abilities or they are reluctant to go into these jobs. But that's engineering, mathematics, harder sciences like physics and chemistry, or rubbish collecting. Rubbish collectors get paid quite a lot of money. Construction workers, they get paid a lot higher than minimum wage. It's a hard job, true, but they get paid higher than minimum wage. What else is a male-dominated job? Fireman, firefighters. Sure, they've allowed women into that job now. They're getting more women, but again, the specific strength, endurance capabilities are more male-centered in general than women. What else? Police officers. I'm not so sure there. Army, etc. The army is also a decently paying job. All those jobs are male-dominated and male-centered. But the more female jobs, like secretary work, what else is a female-type job? I guess teaching is a more female-oriented job. It seems that women don't go into lecturing as much in universities. They always remain in teaching posts. and of course, domestic housework. Uh, it just seems that, or like a child, like looking after children after school, children's clubs. It seems there is a disparity between the payments. Male-dominated jobs tend to pay better, even if they're not skilled, like rubbish collecting, construction workers, etc., compared to female, even if it's a little bit skilled, like secretarial work. What do you think about that?
Well, usually when I think about that, when I think about a job payment, it kind of gets summed up really simply as in what's harder to do. If the job is harder and more stressful, you get paid more. If the job is more dangerous, again, you usually end up getting paid more. Now, of course, this isn't all jobs in general, but for the most part, that's kind of how it works. Garbage collecting is a lot more strenuous work than, being honest, being a teacher. However, when it comes down to it, being a teacher certainly has more value than picking up trash. While it is necessary and it's a great thing, we ways, when you're a teacher, you actually instill value into each, or you can, assuming you're a good teacher. So, I hear you say that, society doesn't, value these female-oriented jobs, but I don't know. I disagree. I think, there are lots of people who oftentimes are always talking about how great it is to have, these female teachers, or how great it is to have women doing these roles, and how great women are. Like personally growing up, I heard all the time that women were a lot better than men, and women can do anything men can do, but better. So I mean, I guess according to you, when we look at it empirically, we can see more men are doing jobs that earn them more money. But at the same time, there's also jobs that are more stressful, are more higher risk. Being a secretary, you move files around. It's not saying it's not important, but it's not dangerous, and it certainly isn't strenuous. Being a construction worker, lots of men die, you know, year round doing that kind of line of work. And we don't even have to talk about being a coal miner back in the 50s, because that was absolutely terrible. So when you compare these different jobs, between men and women, you see that men are doing the more strenuous work and the strenuous jobs, and the jobs that are innovative and making society more advanced, while women are doing more jobs that are primarily taking care of children, raising them,
So
educating them,
okay, so with that,
and telling them what they're going to. Go ahead.
yeah.
Because even then, I mean, I guess it kind of goes the theme that I say. We're different, but we're equal. We both need each thing. We need men to help build the world. We have women who raise children, and women who teach children. What to do later in life. So I don't know. I say that's an incredible job and shouldn't be devalued. And I don't really see very many. And of course, according to you, they must be doing it. I'm going to trust you here. But I personally don't see a lot of people devaluing these jobs that women do. So.
I mean that's what makes me come back to my original statement, which is women do not have role models in society, so they feel like they have to somehow overcompensate for their lack of role models, so that they feel like they need to be like men. I feel like especially with the so-called women's liberation movements, women have actually become disenfranchised with society, in a sense that, for example, divorce rates have increased, and it's usually women who enact on divorce rates. Divorces.
Sure.
I feel like in the 21st century, women they've kind of they've become to a state where they don't feel like they need men anymore. In a sense that now they're trying to become men. They no longer appreciate. I feel like women themselves do not appreciate their jobs. They feel like child rearing is not as lucrative as becoming like a president or something. They feel like it's actually worth less, just because there's no so-called payment. There's no direct payment or appreciation from, do you know what I mean? Like I feel like they're in the position where they want to be like men, so they want everything to be given a monetary value for it to actually make sense. I feel like they no longer love themselves as much as they should, really, and that's what the problem begins, I think, for me.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but I don't see how feminism is going to help with that problem. Uh, I
I
don't.
guess maybe not feminism as it is now, the third wave feminism, but I think a form of woman, a movement which actually helps women recognize their problems, and that they don't actually need to be like men, because they're not men. I mean, at the end of the day, we are different, like you said. We all have different attributes that make us who we are. We can't make children. I mean, no matter how hard we try, maybe in like 200 years later or something, we can have hermaphrodites. We can self impregnate ourselves or something like that. But even then, our genes will be too similar that it will create retarded children. But you know, we actually need women to make children, and I'm not saying that's all they're good for, but that is a big factor in humanity. So they're definitely not worthless. But it's just this. It's because we've reached a position where everybody is so-called free that women no longer actually value themselves anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I see a lot of young ladies definitely don't understand that they certainly do have inherent value. Um, and I think, are you familiar with Stefan Molyneux?
Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, I know eggs are expensive, sperm is cheap. Basically saying that women have an inherent value in our society as being able to speak to us surviving and reproducing. You know, one man could effectively impregnate 10 women, all that jazz. And
Yeah,
you're right, absolutely, I agree with you on that. That I think a lot of women certainly have jerked their. I'm gonna use the word responsibility in terms of being caretakers and you know actually raising children, actually because that's an important thing. And that's what I'm saying here is I don't really see. I do see being stay-at-home mom being devalued a lot by feminists themselves, which is very ironic to me that feminism says you should be able to do what you want to do, and if you choose to stay at home with your children, then automatically you're a terrible person. But I guess we agree here. You're right. There is a lot of devaluing traits, and they are now to act like men and be like men. You know.
yeah. I mean, you could go further and say that it's feminists or so-called, radical feminists who basically have helped to devalue the position of women in society. Because I guess for me, I'm not pro feminism as it is now. I'm pro, I guess, a woman's movement. Basically, it's more like just a woman's self-love movement rather than the feminist movement that it is now. If that makes sense. So, hello, can you still hear me? Hello, wait. Hello, can you hear me? Uh, Hello. Say that. Hello. Hello. Not yet. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
And I think Sorry guys, Google sucks. Google, Google sucks.
Hello. Not clearly. Can you hear me now? Hello. It's better, but not perfect yet. Hello. Not yet. Hello, are you there? Can you hear me? Not so well. Um, Maybe it's my internet. I'm going to connect. I'm going to come back. Hello? Can you hear me now? I have an idea. Can you please send back the link on the I'm gonna try. Not yet, not yet. Wait. Hello.
At first, they did find it quite. My friends, welcome.
sun rises in the east. I permit myself within this existence. Existentially the same, I feel as if my mind may momentarily go insane within the consciousness of the systemological concept that governs the universe. Within the universal extreme entities that exist within the polar atomic structures and systemological compression of state into matter. It's as if matter didn't matter, as though the space-time continuum continued into a state of quantum perpetuation of states of matter. I elevate myself into this universal notion that I'm floating beneath the ocean. It's as if the surface tension is thinner than ice, and I collide within the particulate motion, and I fall deep within the stars. And within the energy and entropy of this universe, I continue to exist within a half of me, half of you, and I feel as if I'm half blue.